engine on. When I lift this up now, it should be free. Ah, okay. So now I've got the engine off of the bed plate. Put this aside. Discuss while I have this. There's our steam valve. Easy enough. I'm going to be putting a displacement oiler in as soon as I can get one made by some dear foreign friend. Maybe some English fellow I can entice. I'd like to have a displacement oiler with the neck going down through a hole I'm making the base plate, and then underneath have a 1-inch diameter or 2-inch diameter container for the oil and water. That way I can run this thing for hours on end without attending to the re-oiling task. So here's the first time I've ever had the engine off of the base plate. Now I get to see. Looks pretty good. Okay, I'm going to take this the rest of the way apart off camera. But one reason for wanting to get this off is this is made of stamped steel and it's quite flexible. The torque, the pressure of the crank makes the flywheel actually wobble when the engine is under a heavy load, because I can't seem to show you with my fingers, but believe me, this thing flexes, goes up and down. So I'm going to be putting a stiffener in here with epoxy putty, something to stiffen this so that this can no longer flex, because I not only lose power, but it throws the parts out of square with one another. This engine, by the way, I'm selling all my inventions for free, was fitted with cloth bearings, bushings, about 20 operating hours ago. So I no longer have metal-to-metal contact surfaces here or here, nor here, nor here, nor here. The only metal-to-metal contact surface here is in this joint here, because there's not enough meat to install a cloth bushing. There are no rattles in this engine except for a tiny one right here. And after 20 hours of use, you know how the microphone amplifies all sounds. Do you hear any noise? Look, if I tap, if this was a metal bearing and I tap it, you know you'd get a little knock. Does it have friction? No. It's so smooth. If I'm pressing as hard as I can. If I had this on the engine and could really press, if I pressed with 20 pounds of pressure on it, it would still roll as if it was on ball bearings. This woolen material that I use, it's piano bushing cloth that I bushed these holes with. About 6 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I did 5 out of the 6. Is low friction, and if you oil it, it doesn't wear out. It does take quite a slight compression to set. So after 20 hard hours of running, and bear in mind that this is a flexible bed plate, there is just the slightest amount of free play in here. But because the cloth is plastic and elastic, it cannot knock. And also, looseness never stopped an engine from working. It doesn't even really rob power. What robs power is friction, and there is no discernible friction in here. Of course there is some friction, but it's certainly no more than a Teflon or a plastic bearing would make. And the hardest working bearing of all, of course, is the crank throw. And if I try, I can't show you on camera, I don't think, there's the slightest bit of play in here, forward and back. It's not wear, it's what I call compression set. Some of the cloth has been pounded flat a bit. So there's no play in the up and down direction because there's never any pressure that way, but in the fore and aft, there's maybe a few thousandths, maybe, under pressure. It's sort of hard to measure or state because the cloth is elastic, it's squishy. So that's it. I have at high speed, either loaded, especially when it's unloaded, there is a high speed knock. So one reason for taking this apart, I'm going to take it apart further. I want to learn how to open up the Wilesco power cylinder so I can take the Wilesco piston out, because I've got a piston slap at high speeds and it's probably just a bit of looseness in something in the piston fit. There's something in there I might be able to correct, and then I could have a perfectly silent engine even at the highest unloaded speeds. So that's where it stands. I've got oil on my hands now, so I think I will use a paper towel to handle my firebox. Go ahead and give this another coat of the pure gilsonite resin, get it all black, and fit my funnel tonight, and we'll maybe have this back together in a couple of days. There we go, a very long video and quite a bore. Oh, and one last thing. First alert, has this new fire extinguisher product, which I keep on the desk whenever I'm doing hot work, as I also keep a wet towel around. And that's a porcelain-lined steel tray to put my torch in after I blow it out. I'm really paranoid about fire. So here's a small handy fire extinguisher that's got a high-tech fire extinguishing powder. It's not going to corrode things. It's a new type of chemistry. It costs about $15. They sell it at the local stores. It's a use once and throw it away. It doesn't make a great cloud of stuff, but it will extinguish fires from several feet away. The powder inside is in a plastic bag. The gas propellant is underneath that. So when you press the button, only powder comes out and not the propellant. So that's why I say it doesn't make a huge long-distance mess. It's not terribly violent. And it is good for all three kinds of fires: grease, meths, electrical. It's safe and effective for all. And because it's so small and because it's so intuitive to use, it seems to me to be a really good design. You just pick it up and squirt, and you're good to go. A water bottle with a squirting head isn't always enough. Okay, thank you for bearing with me. 13 minutes. My God, I better cut this down.